say, there we go. There we go. And also towards the end, if it's okay, I want to take a screenshot, but I'll probably do that from the recording, so no need to worry too much about that. So I don't want to give too much of an introduction because I know that Pearl will be able to introduce herself. I've only met her recently, and she is absolutely wonderful. She writes, or she had written a book called The Fear of Success, and I will continue letting people in. Bear with me. Which I will pop a link down in the chat shortly. But without any further ado, over to Pearl as she's drinking. Sorry, Pearl.
No, that's my it's like taking oxygen, because as you can hear, I'm a little bit snuffly today. So I'm running on a lot of green tea at the moment. So thank you so much, Sass, and thank you all so much for coming and being here. It looks so lovely to see you all in your homes. It feels very cozy today, a very cozy space. So I'm Pearl Howie, as Sass mentioned, and thank you so much. And it's a real privilege to speak for you today. One of the wonderful things about meeting Sass is that I'm getting to know what it is to be an interfaith minister, something I've been curious about in the past. And the more I learn, the more intrigued I am, the more I say enamored I am of what you do. And I think it's, especially at the moment, a really precious and wonderful thing to support people of so many different beliefs and backgrounds. And I think that's something that's really very special. And when Sass invited me, the first thing that popped into my head was a book that I have here, and it's by Thich Nhat Hanh, which some of you might, I'm sure you know who Thich Nhat Hanh is, a very famous monk, yes. And it's a book called Living Buddha, Living Christ. And the thing that popped into my head was the very first thing that he says in this book, which I share with you, which he says, 20 years ago at a conference I attended of theologians, so did I say theologians right? Probably not, and professors of religion, a Christian friend told the assembly, we are going to hear about the beauties of several traditions, but that does not mean that we are going to make a fruit salad. When it came to my turn to speak, Thich Nhat Hanh said, fruit salad can be delicious. So I immediately thought of fruit salad. And I think that being an interfaith minister is something that is really very delicious. I think Thich Nhat Hanh would be pleased to say. But I'm here today to talk about fear of success. And what I love about what I do is similar to you. It's not for me to decide or define what anybody's authentic success is. And that's what I love about what I do, in that I can do all this work and frame fear of success and talk about all these issues, but without telling anybody what their success should look like. And I love that, because often we see things like success should be £1 million or 1 million followers, or even perfect health. And I can't claim to have any of those things. But really, for me, it's about helping people, as I say, to frame fear of success and to move forward. And I love that whenever I work, particularly when I do the fear of success instructor training, I never ever know what's going to happen. I never know what questions are going to be asked, or what case studies people are going to suggest, or what solutions people are going to offer. And I love that, because it's so dynamic and I'm always learning about it as well. And we're going to do a little activity in a little while. And we're going to work on a particular kind of solution for fear of success that I think you guys are very well acquainted with. And you can share some of your wisdom with me. So we'll get to that activity in a little moment. So I understand also from Sass that in her training to be an interfaith minister, you already cover fear of success, which is absolutely wonderful, because it's very rare for me to meet people who've ever done anything on this subject. So to be actually coming here and talking to a room full of people who are already fear of success instructors is really special, really something kind of incredible. And that's what I love about it. But the work that I have done, so there's a lot, and I've written about 9 or 10 books, depending on how you cut it. And so I can't share all of that with you. So what I'm going to try and do today is really, I really hope that you all know what a Viennetta is. Okay, all right, otherwise it'll make me feel very old. But you all know what a Viennetta is, yes? A nice bit of chocolate on the top, the meringue, the ice cream. So what I'm going to try and do is slice through a very thin slice of Viennetta. So you get a little bit of chocolate on the top, a little bit of the meringue, and a little bit of the ice cream. So what I've done in my research on fear of success is I've really followed on from people who started out talking about fear of success in terms of fear of loss of success and fear of consequences of success. Those were the two that I found when I started doing my research. And I managed to find another 3 different types of fear of success, which are fear of false success, fear of what we falsely believe we need to do, have, or be in order to be successful, and what I call the core fear of success, which is our fear of doing, having, or being the very thing that we want to do, have, or be. And talking about that particular core fear of success, there are a lot of reasons why we develop that and why we have that fear of success. And one of the biggest and the real core of that, I feel, is that when we do what we truly want to do, have, or be, that's when we feel all of our feelings. You know, when we are a writer and we write, it feels like flying. You know, when we are a singer and we sing, we feel complete, we feel authentic, we feel truly ourselves. And the wonderful Brené Brown always said, we cannot selectively numb emotion. So when we are really authentically ourselves, what happens is that we wake up all of our emotions. We wake up everything that we may have repressed, and we feel everything. We feel all our emotions. And that means that we also wake up any of the negative emotions that we haven't been able to deal with so far. And that's really important for the solutions to fear of success and what we're going to be doing today in a little bit. So that's those 5 fears of success. And in my first book, what I did is I framed it in a different way of saying, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the problem, those 5 fears of success. Then we looked at the solutions. And then we looked at the origins. So why do we have this fear of success in the first place? And I'm very pleased that in that book, in terms of talking about origins, I was able to sort of dig in and really write about some of my fears of success and where they come from, some personal origins, but also things that are much more global, things that affect a great variety of people around the world, things that really affect almost everybody. So one of the things that I did in terms of solutions was I then came up with 7 practical trainings, which I did as video courses during the pandemic, because you had to do something in the pandemic, and I thought I'll go and do some video courses. And what I tried to do with these was to do what Richard Feynman called, he once said that if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know it well enough. So I thought, let me see if I can really do some practical trainings that you could take anybody on, so basic, so simple, one step at a time, that if you follow the process, it's almost impossible not to work through a fear of success. And then I turned those video courses into books as well. And with all this work that I've done, there's obviously so much, but in a way it doesn't really matter, because it's like what you guys do. You don't have to know all of it. You can't possibly, understand everything around the world. You can't possibly understand everybody's fear of success. But the important thing for me is that I can help people to find their next step. So just one step. So all of the work is really just designed to give people a key to move forward one step, because that's all we need. All we need is to go forward one step at a time. And if we do that, of course, eventually we get there. We don't have to understand it all. But one thing that's really important, and something I talk about a lot in the video courses, in the practical trainings, and also in my Fear of Success instructor training, is associated disorders. And these are so important because they can be our origins, they can be why we develop a fear of success, but they can also be things that come up just for anybody as we go through our success. As we get to that point of success and we're feeling all our feelings, these are things that come up very commonly for so many people. And those 4 associated disorders are post-traumatic stress disorder, survivor guilt, imposter syndrome, and grief and complicated grief. And as you can hear, those are 4 things that we're all going to experience in our lifetimes. So very often, as we go through these things in a very normal, natural way in our lives, they can contribute and add on to any fear of success that we're feeling. So for anybody going through grief or survivor guilt, anything like that, it's going to also hold them back, or can hold them back. And the one thing I really wanted to share with you is I wanted to share with you something about grief and complicated grief in particular. And one thing that's really coming up for me, and I don't know about you guys, and this may well be coming up for you guys in your work, is I hear a lot from people about how they're still struggling because during the pandemic, they were not able to be with the people that they loved when they died, or when they were suffering, when they were going through illnesses, when they were in hospital and people couldn't visit. And of course, during that time, it was a very almost, I suppose, I hate using that word unprecedented, I think we were sick of that word. But to go through a time when people could not have funerals, to go through a time when people could not have a wake, all the things, all the rituals and all the traditions that we have around grieving that help us to move through. And even though in some respects people are always saying we're past the pandemic, we're on to the next thing, there are still so many people who are feeling stuck and unable to move through. And I feel very connected to that because when I was a child, when I was 13, my father died. And because my parents were divorced and I was very young, myself, my brothers and sisters were not allowed to go to his funeral. And it really took me a very, very long time. It took me over 30 years. And doing a lot of the work that I did really before I started talking about fear of success, when I was talking about healing. And I was going around the world and I was exploring Indigenous healing. So I went to a lot of amazing places. I studied a lot of Native American tradition and traditions in places like China, Japan, and also in Southeast Asia. And I was really looking for that healing. And I set myself free a few years ago to go traveling and to go anywhere, do anything. I thought, I'm just going to listen to my heart. And I started off and I went on and I did the Camino de Santiago, which I'm sure a lot of you know about, which is a wonderful pilgrimage, ancient pilgrimage, which again is quite unique because it's open to people of all faiths and any faith or like no faith, whatever. I lost the expression, any different group that you have. I know that Sass has explained you use the term the God of your understanding, but I couldn't quite translate that into the Camino speak. I'm afraid about that. But it's a wonderful pilgrimage. And I discovered it when I was actually on the Kumano Kodo in Japan, which is actually twinned with the Camino de Santiago. And the very special thing about both of those pilgrimages is that they're open to everybody. So, for example, the Kumano Kodo in Japan has always been open to women, when a lot of other spiritual pilgrimages were only open to monks or people of a certain faith, people who've been ordained. And I loved going on the Camino de Santiago because it really was a healing pilgrimage. And it's something that people used to do when they were feeling stuck. So whenever they had, and sometimes it's considered to be something you do as a penance, but I didn't really feel that. I felt it was a healing to go and do that. And there's a lot of the rituals that we have on the Camino that are about letting go. So for example, when you finish your Camino, a lot of people go on to Finisterre, which is supposed to be the ancient end of the Camino, not actually Santiago. And the thing is, you have to go and swim in the sea. So the traditional ritual is at the end, you swim in the sea and you burn something from your pilgrimage, usually your socks. People burn a lot of socks. But the whole thing is to let go and to move on. And for me, I carried on and I went around the world, and I was in Southeast Asia. And I had just come back from Bhutan, and I was in Bangkok. And I was trying to figure out, what was going on for me? What was blocking me? What was so difficult? And I went to a very ancient spa, Anantara in Hua Hin. And it was there that I finally had the breakthrough, and that I realized that what was really holding me back was that I had never allowed myself to grieve for my father. And I think not being able to go to the funeral was a big part of that. And over the years, I had said many, many things. And I had said a lot of things like, oh, you don't miss what you never had. I never really had a dad. Oh, he never loved me. I never loved him. I said a lot of things over the years because I was just trying to pretend that it didn't matter, to me. And so when I was standing on a beach in Thailand, and it finally hit me. And the most important thing for me at that time was to stay with the feelings, to not lose that again, to not slip back into denial of pretending that this didn't matter to me. Because as long as I was doing that, I couldn't really engage. I couldn't really do all the things I wanted to do. I couldn't be honest with myself, because it wasn't being honest with myself to say that I didn't need to grieve. And because I have this background in Indigenous healing, the first thing I did was I looked around and I said, okay, what can I do to help myself to move forward? And I did what I always do, really, what I used to do, was I went and had a really wonderful massage. And it's as some of you may well know, if you go to a really beautiful spa, a really sort of ancient or traditional spa, there's a lot of rituals involved. So I remember the one I went to, they had this thing, like a water bath, they call it, where you go through a ritual even before the massage, where you get washed and you make intentions and things like that. And I went on and I released some more and I released some more. But it was really crashing over me, these big, big waves of grief. And it felt like I couldn't let go. I couldn't move on, and I just didn't know how to say goodbye. So I went on to another hotel, another spa. And I remember I went up to the rooftop, the rooftop spa, and a really amazing woman to do another massage. And I said to her, don't mind me. I'm probably going to cry all the way through this. And I'm just going through something. And of course I lay on the bed and, had this hole in it. And I literally just sobbed the whole way through, Because me, I have these amazing massages and all I'm doing is crying all the way through, but allowing everything to come out. And I remember at the end, I said to this woman, I said, she's an amazing healer, amazing massage therapist. I said, what do you do? What do you do in your culture when you want to let go, when you want to say goodbye? What do you do? And she looked at me and she went, I don't know, So, and I carried on, and I went to another, and I decided there was one place I hadn't been to yet in Southeast Asia, and I was flying back in a couple of days, and I hadn't been able to make it to this one place, and it was a place called Kota Kinabalu in Borneo, and the name of the place is also the name of the mountain, which is Kota Kinabalu. And it's supposed to be the place where the spirits reside. It's a very sacred mountain, and you can climb it, but you have to have a special permit. So I was sitting there and I was trying to figure it all out, and you have to stay in this little climber's hut halfway up the mountain and go at sunrise and all this kind of stuff. And in the end, I just couldn't do it. So I booked this gorgeous hotel, a mountain view villa. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay in this villa and I'm going to just look at the mountain and I'm going to have another massage. So I got there and it was one of these incredible spas. And you know what, I would never have gone there if I hadn't been in such a bad state. And my theory is always like, well, it's cheaper than, it's really good healing, and it's cheaper than the dentist, so let's go and do it. So I got there and it was like one of these ones where you get in and there's like a private boat that takes you out, and it was something else. And I got there and I got to this island and I looked up at the mountain and I couldn't see the mountain, because one of the things they don't tell you is it's often, most of the time, it's shrouded in mist. So you can't even see the mountain. So I got this kind of a joke. I went, well, I've got a mountain view villa and I can't see anything. Oh, I'll go and have another massage. So I did, and I went to this, I have to say, it was probably the best spa I've ever been to in my life. It was like in the jungle, in the rainforest, all these marble slabs that you lie on to have this massage. The most amazing thing. And I came out and I thought, yeah, I do feel better. I do feel like I'm slowly healing. I'm letting go of this. But I also felt, you know what, that I've come as far as massage can take me. I can only, this healing can only take me, this kind of healing can only take me so far. So I went to bed, and in the morning, just before sunrise, I started to feel all these feelings. I feel all this hot and cold and sick and everything going on. And I was like, oh no, I've got dengue fever. I was sick. And I got up and I went out onto the terrace, and there was all these amazing clouds. And then as the sun came up, I suddenly realized it wasn't clouds, it was the mountain. And we had this most glorious sunrise over the mountain. And I didn't do anything. I just sat there. I didn't climb the mountain. I didn't do any ritual swimming in the sea. I just sat there and I looked and watched the sunrise over the mountain, this very sacred mountain. And then I went back to bed and I lay there. And all of a sudden I just felt something release and something go. And that was really how I said goodbye to my dad, and how I finally felt that I could move on from that. So, and that was my way really of helping me to find a way to cope with my grief and start to move forward. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to do a little activity with all of you, because I know that a big part of what a lot of you do is working as celebrants. And I would love if, I don't want to call this a game because that just sounds weird. But what I'd really, really love is if you could take a few moments and come up with one ritual or tradition that we use to say goodbye. So it could be something to do with a funeral or a wake, or even something that we do after that time. Anything that we can use to let go, to say goodbye. And it doesn't even have to be about death or bereavement or a funeral. It can be if somebody has been experiencing, ill health and having to move through that and let go. but I'd like us all to share. And just to make it interesting, there is a prize as well for my favorite, not saying best or worst, but for my favorite. So if you can make it as unusual, as challenging, try to come up with something that no one else in this group is going to come up with. You know, it doesn't have to be, it's a tradition, but it doesn't have to be traditional. Something that we can use to move forward. So while I give you a couple of minutes to think about that, I thought I'd just share also another little thing from this very special book. And it's a little book I picked up in a spa in it's actually they call themselves the only Native American spa in North America, but I kind of have to disagree with that because I've been to Mexican Native American spas in Mexico. But it's a great book, and it's written by a doctor who has Native American heritage, who trained as a doctor and then trained as a traditional healer. And I love it because it brings together lots of different teachings from lots of different Native American traditions. And he talks a lot about ceremony. And as some of you may well know, the Native American rituals, a lot of them had to go underground, and a lot of them had to be practiced in places which were not where they were supposed to be practiced, because people were not allowed to do those rituals in places like ancient waterfalls and things like that. But it's a very beautiful thing because he talks a lot about the ceremonies that people use to enable healing and to enable moving forward. And one thing he says is ceremonies can remove obstructions, and ceremonies do not have to be elaborate, just something as simple as taking time each morning to feel the dawn. So, are you guys all feeling ready? Put your hand up if you feel ready. Are people finding it difficult? You know what we'll do is, Sass, can I ask you to cue everyone to go round? And don't worry if you haven't got one yet, because by the time we get to you, I think you probably will. Because I know that every single person knows at least a dozen things. So very often, sometimes if you can't think of one, I think once you hear a couple, you'll realize, oh yeah, actually, I know you all know these. Okay, so Sass, do you want to cue everybody?
Is there anyone who is dying to go first, dying to share first? Okay, in which case I am going to pick on someone. Apologies now.
Sass, you can go first, Sass, if you want.
I am only going to say a fire ritual because
Sorry?
I'm a fire ritual.
Oh.
Writing something that you want to let go of and then burning. But I'm more intrigued to see what other people might say. So I'm gonna ask our dear April. Can you think of anything?
I knew you'd come to me.
You smiled at the right time.
So I this is really particular to people that are still living, typically, who are just, for whatever reason, not safe to interact with, or it's just too uncomfortable to engage with. But I make art. And while I make the art, like, I draw a shape that's like a question I want to ask them, and then the next shape that I draw and then color in, I wait for the response from the healed, whatever healed version of them exists in the ether or whatever, to come through. And I've made a lot of art like that about, like, people who've hurt me, or people that I'm having trouble forgiving, or people who I've hurt that I want to forgive me.
Oh wow, that is so beautiful. I love that. I really love that. It's, yeah. And I think one of those situations that we often do really, really struggle with. So
Thank you, April. Yeah.
gorgeous, gorgeous.
Is there anyone else who has any letting go? Go on, Karen, jump in.
Okay. What I love doing to say goodbye, in particular to people, is to write them a letter as if they were still around and really talk to them, that really mean them, and write down everything my heart wants to say. What is important here that I choose biodegradable paper and also a safe pen or pencil, because that letter is going to go into the soil, into the earth. And I've done it several times at funerals that I've actually, you know, in the end of the funeral, everybody puts like a little bit of earth or sand or leaves, flowers or whatever into the grave. And I put in my letter as well. So it is actually buried. It can also be done at home if it's not a person or if the person is buried somewhere else. Of course, in one's own garden. But a really nice way is to write it down, maybe on a smaller piece of paper, and bury it in the bottom of a flower pot, and then actually plant something on top, which is then tended to and will blossom and will remind us all of the cycle of life we are held in. So the earth as the great transformer, as the one who makes new things grow, is really the essential part in that ritual. And I've done it a couple of times, and I've also recommended it to other people, and I find it incredibly useful.
I love that. That's so, it's a, you know, and I think the word that often comes up, you know, when we're doing all kinds of work is grounding, you know, and I love when you talk about the earth. It really brings it back to being, you know, very grounded, very essential, beautiful.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Letty, go on.
Okay, so something that I love to use is pouring water. So simply having a jug of water and a bowl, and whether it is around an individual grief or the letting go of one or many things, just to pour a little water from the jug, let it go into the bowl, and continue that process as a way of pouring tears, letting our tears be shed. And then when you're ready, taking that water out into nature and pouring it into nature, giving it back to Mother Earth. And it's a lovely thing to do at a grave as well, just as Karen was saying, you know, that putting the letter into it, pouring that water so that the tears of our grief merge with the earth where the person's buried.
That's gorgeous. That's lovely. Oh, it
Thank
makes
you.
waterfalls. Yeah.
Thank you, Letty. Any more hands? Yeah. Oh, Marika.
One of the things I tend to do if I do funerals for people who are not religious, or in the case of my mother, who didn't have a chance to get last rites, even if, you know, it was supposed to be done, is blessing of the body. So what I tend to do is I have either sacred oil, or I use flour to bless the, you know, the hands and the feet and the eyes and the heart and the ears, you know, all the and just say a prayer, as in, you know, we bless the eyes that saw the beauty in, you know, the children, or I usually make it up on the spot. And often, because people either die in hospital or even during the night. My mother died in the night. She was supposed to get her last rites on the Friday afternoon, and she died on the Friday morning. So it's last rites is not necessarily for the people, for the person that is dying themselves. It is for the family to make the body sacred, or the person, put them in the spotlight and thank them for whatever they've done. And it is always very, very helpful, because I don't use standardized prayers that the church would, a priest would, which is no less powerful, but it's less personal. And especially if family members are not religious, they find more solace in a personalized blessing than a standardized ritual. That's what I do.
Thank you, Marika.
So
Yeah.
lovely. And I love that it seems to bring everything together. You know, everything that has meaning. You say, I love it.
Sarah, did I see your hand just a second ago?
Yes, a ritual that I've done with my daughter, and it's not associated particularly with death, but with just saying really goodbye to some serious grief that she was dealing with. We went to the beach and we spent some time finding stones that we liked, and then we just sat by the water and held each stone and fed into the stone an aspect of the grief, and then threw the stones into the water. And that was probably about 10 stones each. You know, I joined in with her and you know, added some of my own things to her, to what I perceive, you know, that I was perceiving her feeling that she wasn't necessarily noticing. But it was very powerful and helpful for her, I think.
Mm,
I love that.
thank
I think
Yeah.
the sea is all that you did say it was by the seaside, did you?
Yes, on the beach, yeah.
There's something very powerful about I live near the beach, and it's always where I go to release and let go. And even when I don't even know that's where I'm going, I end up there. And you suddenly realize, yeah, I'm here to let go. I'm here to release. And there's something very special about that. I mean, obviously the sea is a very, you know, powerful and beautiful thing. And it seems to do the work. It seems to do the trick.
Mm.
Yeah, being in Portsmouth, I completely agree. Completely agree. I think we've got time for one more. Jacqueline, please do jump in.
How you doing? I suffer a lot of post-traumatic stress, and to help me let go of some of that, I collect moon water. So it's just natural rainwater that's left out under a full moon. But I also have paper that actually dissolves. So whatever's stressing me or someone I know, I write it down, and then I put it into the moon water and it dissolves. So just having time to reflect as the paper is dissolving in the water, and a bit of meditation. And then when it is fully dissolved and I'm ready to let go of it, I actually go out and pour it under my cherry tree in the back garden. So I just find that just helps and might help someone else as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back over to you, Pearl.
Okay. Well, I did say there was a prize. I find it very, very difficult now because everybody was just, that was all just so wonderful. But I think I'm going to like give a little book to, it's just a little book to April. because I really love the painting, and yeah, that really spoke to my heart. So they were all just so fantastic. Yeah, but I think that just kind of that caught me on the hop, and I didn't expect to hear something like that. So that was you got the prize because you surprised me. And it was a good enough reason, because they were all just so wonderful. So no, you're very welcome. So guys, should we open this up for Q&A? Have people got questions? Oh, there we go, April.
I've never really thought of my fear of success being intertwined with grief. This is really hitting me.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about, I kind of want to ask you a little bit about the experience of bodily healing being like a catalyst. I myself experienced a radical physical healing process back in August. And I'm still kind of not over it. And I'm having trouble kind of moving forward from that experience. So, how do you let something like that go when it's something like that profound and beautiful and helpful?
Yeah. I think healing is, you know, when we work in this, space, you hear a lot of, very fluffy words, about healing and mind, body, spirit, and things like that. And it's not fluffy. It's incredibly difficult work, and it's incredibly brave work. And I kind of talk about and sort of joke about spas and massages and things like that. But I also know that one of the bravest things that we do is, I think, as it says in the Desiderata, is to strive to be happy. To actually go after healing and to seek healing and to put ourselves in that position. And I think that the most important thing to remember is we all know when we think about it, that we are mind, body, and spirit. We're not one thing. So although we might experience something physically, mentally, spiritually, we know that's all connected. We are all connected. That's all connected. And somebody once said to me, and it's very true, that sometimes we have to go through the body to get to the mind, and sometimes we have to go through the mind to get to the spirit, and via all of those different things, but it's all connected. And when we have an experience of healing, it's not one moment. It's a thread. It goes on. It's a long thing. So it sounds to me, the way I hear it, and I could be wrong, is it sounds like this is something that is still happening for you. It's not like, and the thing is that when we experience really profound healings, it changes everything, and we can't go back. And it also changes the way we view everything. All the stories that we've told ourselves, everything, all the stories about our lives change. And I think you could hear that when I was talking about my dad. When I finally got to that place, I'm like, I said this, I said this, I said this, and it's a huge shift. It's I talk about like the new paradigm and things like that, but it's a bit like, it's so disorientating when we experience true healing, because it's like all the lies that we told ourselves to get to this point, we realize are just lies. So it's like, I got to that point and I'm like, why am I having such a hard time, dealing with the death of my dad, who was not a good he was all, and I could say all these horrible things. I could say all these horrible things. It doesn't change the fact that I loved him deep. I had unconditional love for him and he had unconditional love for me. It doesn't change that, but sometimes it changes who we think we are. And I experienced something else very at the same time. I was reading back what I'd written, and there were two very painful situations that kind of kind of got healed at the same time. And when one was I sort of saw it and I was healing it, I realized all these things I'd said about myself, you know, my, what do you call it? You know, my legends. I am this, I am that, I'm like this. And I was like, oh no, all of this is like a trauma response. I do this because I got hurt doing that. This is not me. This is not my personality. This is not who I am. This is a response to something that happened way back when. And I've just been living my life this way to try and protect myself. You know? And it's like, you are so incredibly brave. You know? It is so much easier to stay living those legends and living those lies. You know? But there comes a point when we want more. And you know that you are going for more. You know, you are going for more happiness, more authenticity, and more you. You know, and you will come out of it. You know, you're on a path of healing. And when you come out of that, you always come out more you. You know, there's more you there. And that's the best thing. You're going to be more, you know, but it's not always pretty, and it is brave work. So I'm trying to answer, I think I've got lost in your question. I think the thing is you know that you're on this, but it can also be exhausting, you know? And one of the things I think we all know this, I think sometimes the moment we're tempted to give up the most is when we're almost there. You know, it's like the hardest moment. And it's funny, I was thinking about when I was on the Camino, and I kept on getting, you know, and I got to a point where I did a bit of walking and did a bit more walking, and then I started to get on buses, you know, because I'd walked enough. And I remember this one day, I got on this bus and I was going to this Spanish town, and I got on this bus and it was like a 45-minute bus journey, and I was the grumpiest I'd ever been. And I was like, I hate the music, I hate the scenery, I had the music on, I hate the people on the bus, I hate everything, I don't want to, you know. And I got to this place and I got off the bus and I was like, it was like a terminal, and I was like, I hate this, I hate this, hate this. And I looked up at all the destinations, like, I'm going home. I'm just going to get on a plane, I'm going to go home. I'm not going to finish my Camino, I'm just going to go home. And then I went, yeah, but there's a bus to Santiago. And I was like, I've come this far, I might as well go. And so I literally ran and got a ticket and I jumped on the bus to Santiago. And I was then I'm on a bus for like another hour and a half. And I'm on this bus going to Santiago and I'm lit like this. Yeah, going, and the scenery's great and the music's great, and I got music. I'm like, you know what? Because I was so tempted to give up when I was almost there, because I didn't have much more left in me. And then when I got on that right bus and I was like, yes, I'm finally, you know, I'm here. It was great. But so much of the time we get so completely exhausted. It's like when we're recovering from an illness and you just feel, you know, sometimes you've got a bug or something, you say, I'm never going to get through it, I'm never going to get, and then you wake up the next day and you feel great, you know. And that time, you know, we're just exhausted, we're just tired, and just, I think you know what you're doing, you know, the answers are within you, and you know what you're doing, and you can do this. Okay, sorry, Sass. No,
it's just to point out the time, that was all.
Yeah, I'm going to get cut off.
I think we've got enough time for one more question. Deb? You're just on mute there, Deb.
I actually don't have a question. I'm sorry. I just want to offer my gratitude. This has been so, I only saw the message this morning. 2 weeks ago, my brother died, and we're in the middle of writing his funeral at the moment. And I have been experiencing all sorts of synchronicities since he died. And I really do feel as though he is guiding me at the moment in places that I need to be. And this has just been so completely unexpectedly perfect for where I am, both in terms of the unexpected theme of grieving and funerals, and so many beautiful ideas. The word that came to me was blessing. And then what Marika said really connected with that. So I won't go. I did a vow renewal blessing for his daughter and for his daughter's wedding and for their baby last year. So I shall tie in blessings somehow for the whole family into the funeral. Yeah, so again, I'm just thankful to be here. I'm thankful for the synchronicity. You talked about the new paradigm. And for me, this is so much part of that paradigm. The knowing of the veil being actually non-existent. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's so true. I want to say that just this morning, I was standing at the window and a dragonfly went past. And I think some of you might know that the butterfly is often seen as a symbol when people die, pass over, of that. But the dragonfly is also. And when my great uncle died, I remember everywhere I went, I was just surrounded by dragonflies. And that's how I know, because I thought, this is really weird. Dragonflies, I must look up what it means. And as you say, that synchronicity is incredibly comforting. And I think that's really special.
As you're speaking, Pearl, I can see Letty. Is there something you want to tell us, Letty?
Oh, dragonfly.
I just had to kind of point out, yeah, I wear the dragonfly on me all the time in the crook of my arm, in memory of my dear best friend Alison, who died 10 years ago this September, and her eldest daughter has one in the crook of her other arm because we're forever connected. So, and for you to see a dragonfly at this time of year, it's spirit speaking. Truly beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
I'm just going to jump in here just because I'm aware of time and I know that people are going to need to pop off at 12. So before we carry on or round off, I do want to say, if any of you want to check out any of Pearl's work, I would love to point you towards Pearl's book, Fear of Success. I did post a link in the chat. I don't know if I'm allowed to exactly the model of Pearl there. The Kindle version, I probably shouldn't say this, I'm really sorry, Pearl, but the Kindle version is under £2 at the moment. So please do please do take a look, and it's a really, really well written. Oh, you came too late, sorry. I will post that in just a second if that's okay, April. Also, we as OSMIC at the moment, we're looking to put on a lot of these kinds of talks, and we're not able to necessarily pay the speaker. So Pearl has gracefully offered to do this for free. However, I would like to open essentially what we call the virtual tip jar. So it's a link to PayPal if you are so called. There is absolutely no obligation for you to donate any money to Pearl, and just for visibility's sake, anything that Pearl does get, OSMIC will receive 15% of that, just to cover running costs and things like paying Zoom so that we can have these calls. So bear with me, I am just going to pop Pearl's email in the chat. And all you would need to do is to go onto PayPal and put in Pearl's email address, and any money will go straight to Pearl. As I say, it's a completely donation, it's a gift. please do not feel obligated, but any gifts are gratefully and very much they're well received. I'm jumping over my words here. Let me just get the other link for Amazon.
Actually, Sass, is it all right if I mention my training as well?
Absolutely. I was about to pass back over to you anyway.
Oh, okay.
Over to Pearl.
It's so nice. It's so nice. Thank you, Sass, so much. You've been absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to mention, because I have mentioned a few times the instructor training, which was really kind of how I met Sass as well, who did the training, the last one. That I've got one next week. So this one I'm doing, I keep experimenting, and the next one I'm doing is the next 2 Tuesday evenings. So I've split it over 2 evenings, and so yes, it's a Fear of Success instructor training in 2 parts. If anybody wants to know about that, or so you can either email me, or if you Google me on Eventbrite, you'll see all the details on Eventbrite, and you can have a little look on there. But please do just let me know if you're interested, even if you can't do that one, if you have any questions about that, because I think sometimes when you get asked questions, it's really it's a really good practice for also sometimes things that you hadn't thought of, which is why I'm actually running it on 2 separate days, because I'm actually running it particularly for people in the States, so that they can come in the evening, because otherwise the morning is too early for them, really.
What I'll say, Pearl, if you send me any links, because I'll be popping this recording to everyone over email. If you've got any links you want me to put out, just email me or message me.
The good thing is most things are quite easy to find when you Google.
Yeah.
Actually, I must remember one time I went to a wonderful training with Gurumukh, who's a Kundalini yoga teacher, and she said she's talking all kinds of wisdom, and she went, "Just forget everything." She said, "You can Google it now," and I just love that. She said, "You don't have to carry around all these notebooks; just let it go, and when you need something, just look it up."
So we've got 3 minutes left. Do we have any last minute things would like to say, or very last minute quick questions? Go on, Karen.
I'm intrigued and really inspired by these 4 reasons for fear of success. And there's one thing I would like to add, because I've been looking into it more deeply, and I find it very much related to many problems people have, which is intergenerational trauma. I know that could run under PTSD, but I think it goes deeper, because it's really something people are often very unconscious about. And I don't know, Pearl, whether you have looked into that or have experiences about it from your clients, but I really think
I will jump in very quickly, because it is a huge part of fear of success. Okay. And again, it sort of cuts through in a lot of areas. And one thing I always say, like with fear of success, is we are healing a disease of the mind, in a respect, and the body, but also we're healing generations of issues, and so much of our fear of success comes from what is handed down, and even what we inherit in our bodies as well. So yeah, it's huge. And I think I don't talk about that specifically, but it comes in lots of different, it's sort of dotted all around, I think, so I think if you read the book and things like that, you'll hear it will chime through in lots of different places, definitely.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. And thank you, Pearl. Genuinely, thank you for giving your time for us. I hope I'm speaking for everyone here, but we welcome you, absolutely welcome you, and your wisdom. And to everyone else, thank you for coming along. This is I won't say it's the first one we've done at all, but since we're getting the momentum back, this is the first one that we've really kicked off with. So I appreciate everyone's support. I'm just going to stop the recording now, I say, as I lose the button. There we go.